Tonight, inflation increase, the rising cost of living complicating calculations about a possible interest rate cut. Rents are up and grocery prices not coming down.
I came in for a melon, took it up to the cash, and it was $6.99, so I left it there.
Factors driving the surge and what it could mean for spring travel. Donald Trump back in court hours after a landslide campaign victory. Canada cracks down on university research partnerships with Russia, Iran, and China over security concerns.
Buy myself a house.
Plus, millions in the cards for one lucky lottery winner. And historic firsts at television's Golden Night.
I wouldn't be standing here without my parents.
The memorable moments and Elton John's entry into the exclusive EGOT Club.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening, everyone. The chances of the Bank of Canada holding its key interest rate next week just went up after new numbers today confirmed what most Canadians already know. It's getting tougher to get by. Canada's inflation rate was 3.4% in December, higher than the 3.1% the month before, pushed up by the higher price of gas, cars, rent, and holiday air travel. CTV's Vanessa Lee on the bottom line and how to save on your next getaway.
Economists say it's not a sign of another round of inflation, and the rise last month was widely expected.
The good news is that if you look at inflation excluding very volatile items like oil or gasoline prices, you do see a continuous trend downwards.
Still, Canadians are paying more for most things compared to a year ago. In December, groceries were up 4.7%, with rent climbing 7.7%. And over the span of a month, airfares jumped 31%, with strong demand during the holidays. Getting away for March break is going to cost more too. Last year, a Montreal family of 4 paid $8,600 for a week in Mexico. This year, that same all-inclusive vacation is costing them $600 more, and it would have been even more expensive had they not been flexible with dates.
The more convenient the date is, the higher the price is. So if they're willing to give a bit and then, go earlier or later, maybe take a day off school or take a day off work in order for it to be cheaper.
Small business owners like Naeem Askari Nassab are hoping they'll catch a break soon.
It's pretty stressful. I try to be hopeful.
Ever since his dreams of opening a salon came true a year and a half ago, he has struggled with skyrocketing bills. Everything from supplies and rent and electricity to his business loan.
I personally seen more than 5% increase on my payment.
The Bank of Canada raised its key interest rate last year to a 2-decade high of 5% to tame inflation. Experts say it likely won't be in a rush now to cut rates.
The Bank of Canada will probably stand still next week and just say, we'll look towards interest rate cuts probably the second half of this year.
This means Canadians with variable mortgages or those looking to borrow will have significantly higher payments for the time being. Omar.
All right, Vanessa, thank you. Well, as Vanessa mentioned, also costing more, trips to the grocery store, especially after Canada's largest supermarket chain confirmed it's cutting its 50% discounts on items near expiry. But the cost of some items is getting easier to digest. CTV's Chris Najkate goes through the shopping list.
No matter where you go, shoppers are reluctantly accepting the price or walking away entirely.
I came in for a melon, preferably a watermelon. I found a mini and took it up to the cash, and it was $6.99, so I left it there.
As a father with 3 kids and a family of 5, the grocery bill is the biggest bill I have in my monthly bills.
And those costly groceries are expected to stick around. According to Stats Canada's latest consumer price index, overall food prices rose to 4.7% in December. More specifically, Canadians are paying more for fruit juice, while fruit and packaged fruit, cookies and crackers, Vegetables and beef are also up. The price for edible fats and oils did drop slightly, but is still high. The price of gas, shipping, and rent increases are just some of the reasons food prices are up.
A lot of products related to fruits and vegetables go up. Mainly it's because of droughts, problems with floods, production problems across North America. We're paying for it now.
Lettuce and tomatoes are seeing the most significant decrease, while eggs, bananas, and cheese have gone down as well. Compounding the issue, Loblaws has recently decided to end its 50% discount on marked down food items to 30%, leaving seniors who rely on the savings with an even bigger struggle.
Often it's fresh food, and that's our most nutritious food. So it's quite disappointing to hear that that it's not going to be as affordable to folks that need it.
And for those considering to change their protein intake from meat to dry beans and lentils, experts say those too have gone up by 25% in the last 4 years. Omar.
All right, Creason, thank you. The woman who has led Alberta's NDP for nearly a decade, including as premier, said today she is stepping down until the party chooses a successor.
Thank you to all the Albertans I've met along the way. Those who advised me, who supported me, who disagreed with me, and yes, even campaigned against me. We all love this province.
The party meets at the end of the month to discuss timelines for a leadership race. Notley does not know if she will fulfill her term as member of Edmonton Strathcona, but has ruled out running federally. And the man running to be U.S. president again was back in court. Hours after a celebration in Iowa, he is now fighting a defamation case brought by the writer E. Jean Carroll. The jury has to now decide how much he owes her. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joey Malbin on what's next.
Fresh off his blowout victory in Iowa, Donald Trump in a New York courtroom, facing a defamation trial. He didn't have to be here as a jury weighs how much he has to pay writer E. Jean Carroll, who claims Trump sexually attacked her in the 1990s.
I'm thrilled to be back with the people of the great state of New Hampshire, with thousands of proud, hardworking American patriots, which is what you are.
The former president in New Hampshire, after crushing his rivals in Iowa, winning over conservative Christians in just about every county, tightening his grip on the Republican Party and the presidential nomination.
Grievances of the past. The better choice for a better America?
Not so fast, says Nikki Haley, the former governor of South Carolina, out with a new ad and refusing to debate rival Ron DeSantis if Trump doesn't take part, declaring this is now a two-person race.
I'm going after Trump.
Already in New Hampshire, Haley is within striking distance of Trump in the polls, a state less hospitable to Trump. She's banking on independents who can vote in the primary here.
At some point, something's got to give. People are tired of the division and the chaos. We can't go through 4 more years of chaos. We won't survive it.
Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis sounding triumphant for edging Haley out, but still a distant second to Trump. In South Carolina, sharpening his attacks against Haley in her own home state.
Look, she was governor here for 6 years. Can you name major achievements under her tenure? I mean, tell me if there are.
Vote for this man right here in the New Hampshire primary.
Vivek Ramaswamy and former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson bowing out. New Hampshire will be a bigger test for Donald Trump, who's projecting an era of inevitability. Can anyone challenge him? We may know next week when New Hampshire votes. Omar?
That primary 1 week from today. Joy, thank you. Raw wounds of grief were reopened in Saskatchewan today, where an inquest into Canada's worst mass stabbing heard there were 92 emergency calls made during the rampage that ultimately killed 11 people. Here's CTV's Allison Bamford.
Lydia Gloria Burns was Miles Sanderson's 10th victim. She died trying to help Bonnie and Gregory Burns, who were also killed in the attacks. The disturbing details of how Sanderson stole vehicles, broke into homes, and repeatedly stabbed victims were difficult for many to relive.
It brought back a lot of emotions.
Lydia Gloria Burns was a community addiction support worker on James Smith Cree Nation. Her brother believes the drug use she tried to stop played a part in the worst mass stabbing in Canadian history.
Drug use is rampant. And since this incident, it's still there. It's getting worse.
The inquest heard that Sanderson was selling cocaine on the First Nation and that he was high in the days leading up to the attacks. An RCMP officer testified some of Sanderson's targets were involved in his drug trafficking. Others had affiliations with a local gang.
So if you could turn that around and make sobriety and healthy living an acceptable part of society, then we'd be better off.
Sanderson had a lengthy criminal past and a history of violence involving his family members. At the time of the rampage, he was wanted on a Canada-wide arrest warrant for breaking parole.
We'd like to hear from the parole board is why he was released, so easily without being labeled as a dangerous offender for one thing, and without having the community informed about his release.
The Parole Board and Corrections Service Canada looked into Sanderson's release, but have yet to reveal their findings. Both parties are expected to testify at the inquest.
Indigenous groups are really not treated as equal partners in the justice system. Recommendations looking to start to change that is something that the nation is really interested in here.
Recommendations for inquests are not legally binding, and some family members worry they may turn into empty promises. However, the RCMP has said it will take any recommendations related to policing very seriously. Omar?
All right, Alison Bamford in Melfort again tonight. Iran launched airstrikes on what it calls militant bases in neighboring Pakistan, further compounding fears of the Israel-Hamas war escalating into a broader regional conflict. Islamabad says 2 children were killed in the unprovoked strikes. And to the west, Iran struck what it claimed were Israeli spy headquarters in northern Iraq last night. Today, Baghdad recalled its ambassador in protest. And as tensions flare, a delegation of Canadian MPs is in the Middle East tonight. CTV's Judy Trin on their mission.
The aftermath of an Israeli airstrike that obliterated the home of 2 families. Neighbors say 12 people were killed, among them several children. After more than 100 days of war, the United Nations says famine has arrived, putting more than 2 million Gazans at risk of starvation. The situation is on the minds of the Canadian delegation as they arrived in East Jerusalem. 2 Liberal and 3 NDP members of Parliament, along with more than a dozen humanitarian advocates, are on a week-long mission to find ways for Canada to help. Yesterday, they visited a UN school for refugees in Jordan.
The students were really concerned about the killing of the innocent children in Gaza and the fact that the children in Gaza have not been able to go to schools.
Today in East Jerusalem, they met the Palestinian doctors of Al-Maqased Hospital, some who trained in Canada.
They told us about the 36 babies that were in the neonatal unit at the Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza. The Al-Maqased Hospital had the capacity to take these babies, but permission wasn't granted, and it would only take about an hour if they wanted to transfer those babies, and many of those babies lost their lives.
Their visit also involved meeting with Jewish peace groups in Israel.
One of the Israelis spoke about how his mentor, somebody that he had grown up with, he had worked with, was killed on October 7th. Somebody who had encouraged him to join a peace movement.
80 kilometers away, Israel pulled some of its forces out of northern Gaza as Qatar and France brokered a deal to deliver medication to hostages held by Hamas in exchange for food and water for civilians. It's a glimmer of hope in a tangled crisis. This trip was sponsored by the advocacy group, the Canadian Muslim Vote. When the MPs return, they say they will file a report to Parliament and continue pushing for a ceasefire in Gaza. Omar.
All right, Judy, thank you. Canada said today it will stop funding research projects between Canadian universities and entities in countries deemed a threat to national security. CTV's Jill Makishon joins us now. Jill, which countries have been flagged here?
Omar, the government released a list of more than 100 institutions and research labs from Russia, China, and Iran targeting certain fields that could pose a risk to Canada and its allies. The list of named research organizations includes institutions linked to military, defense, microbiology, aerospace, and artificial intelligence. This new policy has been nearly a year in the making and comes after 2 high-profile security challenges with China. In 2022, Canada introduced a ban on Huawei equipment from the 5G network, claiming the Chinese government could use the company to spy. Huawei has denied the accusations. And in 2019, 2 Chinese scientists were escorted from Canada's highest security laboratory in Winnipeg for reasons health officials described at the time as relating to possible breaches in security protocols.
I think they're just 2 examples amongst a number of examples. The government of Canada has come to realize that given our view of China, which is that they really are a strategic adversary, we cannot risk passing off intellectual property in this fashion.
And while some have voiced concerns about academic freedom, it seems universities largely believe they can work in the parameters set out by the federal government.
We as the university stand for an open research environment, and we believe in the free idea exchange. But on the other end, we also have to protect our researchers and the innovation and the intellectual property or research they're doing from malice intent.
This government list released today is a start, Omar. You can expect to see more entities added as work continues.
All right, Jill, thank you. Coming up, the perilous journey to freedom. We'll take you to one of the world's most dangerous migrant routes. A growing number of vulnerable people are making one of the most perilous journeys on Earth with the hope of a better life in the United States or Canada. The Darien Gap is a treacherous, roadless, and lawless jungle connecting Colombia and Panama. It's also controlled by the Gulf Clan cartel, who run a massive cocaine operation. For many, the trip begins in Necoclí, Colombia, which is where we find W5's Avery Haynes.
These boats represent one of the most dangerous migration routes in the world. All of these people here are preparing to begin a trek of the Darien Gap. This is a 100-kilometer stretch of rugged jungle between Colombia, where we are now, and Panama. And if you look, they're hardly prepared. Young children in flimsy shoes. You can see over here people are selling tents that you would use, that you buy for your children to play with at home, not tents for the rugged elements in the jungle. There are reports of rapes and of robberies, and that doesn't even include the physical challenges of doing this route. Flash flooding, the snakes, the spiders, as well as wild animals. Most of the people here are from Venezuela fleeing there, but we've also seen a lot of Chinese nationals as well, people from Haiti, all in search of a better life. And the numbers of people making this trek has exploded over the years. In 2021, 130,000 people did it. Last year, it was 500,000, and they're expecting even more this year. Avery Haynes, CTV News, Necoclí, Colombia.
And Avery and her crew are walking the Darien Gap, and her documentary will air on an upcoming episode of W5, which resumes on January 27th at 7 p.m. Scary moments at an airport in northern Japan today after an airliner ran into another on the tarmac. A Korean air jet with almost 300 people on board hit an empty Cathay Pacific plane while taxiing for takeoff in heavy snow and poor visibility. No one was hurt. It comes just 2 weeks after a deadly collision on a runway in Tokyo. And another collision today, this one on a major highway near Toronto. Watch as this driver, trying to pass snowplows, loses control, hits the median, and spins out into a plow that then gets pushed along. Coming up next, chasing the ace and the dream. A growing jackpot is still up for grabs tonight in a wildly popular lottery that's proving quite a draw in the Maritimes. Here's CTV's Sarah Plowman.
So many tickets. Shuffling requires shoveling. This is Chase the Ace in Petit Rocher, New Brunswick. The jackpot beyond anyone's expectations.
$7,410,548.
For the 47th week in a row, a name was drawn. There were 6 cards to choose from. The player let a game decide which card. Once again, it did not lead to the Ace of Hearts, which means no jackpot, but a consolation prize of more than $400,000.
Next week.
This game is making history.
We're probably the largest Chase the Ace in Canada at this point.
Players have to buy tickets in northern New Brunswick, but the buzz has poured over borders.
It's unbelievable. We met people last week from PEI that came in to buy tickets. We met people from Halifax that came in to buy tickets. We had one couple that I know of who came from Bangor, Maine.
And so for now, people here will keep counting dollars, tickets, and the jackpot
$8 million.
that keeps growing. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Petit Rocher, New Brunswick.
The suspense continues after the break.
There you have the facts of life, the facts of life.
Reliving a night of nostalgia and television triumphs. Ratings for last night's Emmy Awards plunged to 4.3 million viewers, a record new low. But as CTV's Heather Wright reports, that didn't take away from the historic highs.
The 75th Annual Emmy Awards began with a look back. Host and Blackish star Anthony Anderson opened the award show with a medley of classic theme songs and a warning that his mother would be tracking time, keeping winners and her son in line. In a rare public appearance, Christina Applegate presented the first award. The star, who has multiple sclerosis, receiving a standing ovation as she made her way across the stage.
You're totally shaming me with disability by standing up. It's fine. Okay.
History was made last night, with Quinta Brunson becoming the first Black woman to win Best Comedic Actress in more than 40 years.
Ali Wong.
While Ali Wong became the first Asian woman to win an Emmy in a lead role.
I wouldn't be standing here without my parents, my amazing parents.
Elton John joined the EGOT Club, adding an Emmy to his Grammy, Oscar, and Tony statues.
I want to thank David Furnish, who had the creative vision for this show.
John missed the ceremony, instead represented by his Canadian husband, David Furnish, who also won an Emmy. Going in with 27 nominations, Succession took home 6 awards, including Best Drama Series. The Bear, the hit show about a Chicago restaurant, also took home 6 awards, including Best Comedy Series.
I just want to thank restaurants as a whole, hospitality as a whole.
Canadian chef and one of the show's producers and actors, Matty Matheson, interrupted mid-speech by Eben Moss-Baccarat, who kissed his co-star.
I want to thank me.
Niecy Nash-Betts gave one of the most powerful speeches of the night, thanking herself and promising to continue speaking truth to power.
I accept this award on behalf of every Black and brown woman who has gone unheard yet over-policed.
Because of the actors and writers' strikes last year, these Emmys were postponed from September. Many shows winning for seasons that aired nearly 2 years ago, making for memorable reunions on one of Hollywood's biggest nights. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
And that is a snapshot of this Tuesday. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching. Good night, and see you tomorrow.